Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. We were thrown a curveball today, and of course, Ron was, because Ron's sick, and this was going to be his, and we didn't know that till early this morning. So we are going to start, first of all, with a prayer.
Let us pray. God, we give you so much thanks for all of the saints who have gone way before us, who brought Epiphany into being, and for the saints of recent that have spent many hours and many evenings and prayer time preparing what we are about to see today. We ask that you would be with us, that you would grant us open hearts and mindsets of abundance. Help us to look at these plans and to consider them carefully and to pray together about how you are calling us into the world and how you are calling us to be nourished in this place so that we may go out and serve others. We ask your blessing upon this meeting and all those who will lead it. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, and welcome again. Well, today then you're going to get a triumvirate. Chuck and John and I will go through what Ron had set up and presented. So, Chuck, you want to start us off?
Thank you, Chip. Good morning, everyone. What we'd like to do is go through a few slides to give you some background information on what we've been working on for the last year and a half. I started this project with council, and I'm still on the renovation committee, so we'll go through about 4 or 5 slides to give you a little bit of background. Some of this might be repetitive, so I apologize for that. For some of you it might be new, but we want to make sure everyone has the context of how we got to this point. And then John and Chip can go through some of the work we've been doing with the architect to give us a vision of what some of the phases might look like. And obviously we don't have any cost estimates yet because we haven't gone out to bid for anything, but at least based on the work the renovation committee did, we have a priority list of what we think based on the surveys that we took from the congregation, what people felt was probably the most important things to address first. So, as our Lord tells us, without a vision, your people will perish. And unless the Lord builds the house, it is built in vain. So, go ahead. Thanks, John. So, as a congregation committed to deepening our relationship with God and one another and our community, we envision a facility that welcomes members, guests, and community groups by being safe, attractive, accessible by all physical abilities, and cost effective. So that's kind of a vision statement, if you will, for what we're trying to achieve with these projects. So how did we get here? Sorry. Well, as many of you know, the facility is aging. The last major renovation work and the construction here of the sanctuary was done over 30 years ago in the late 1980s. So we have quite a few mechanical and structural things that need attention, as well as cosmetic things. And in the past 3 years, we received several gifts. They were sizable, and they were meant to be used for renovating and improving the Epiphany Center. So as we started looking at it as a council, at first we were thinking about just changing the carpet and painting and refreshing the Epiphany Center. But it just became obvious that there were many other things that had to be addressed at the same time. And so based on obviously the work we did, we said, I think we could do more. So let's see if we can take a survey of the congregation, see what kind of appetite there is to address more things, and see if we can do a little bit more comprehensive project. And so we actually developed 2 committees over the last 2 years. We had one committee called the Renovation Committee that was working with the Property Committee to identify just a list of all the things. What are our comprehensive list of all the things that we think need to be fixed? And so we worked on that for the last, we've had a list going, but we expanded that list. At the same time, we had another committee called the finance or fundraising committee that was looking at, well, how much can we afford? So they're kind of two open-ended questions. How much do you work on is based on how much you can afford. And so we kind of ran both committees in parallel and said, well, for the renovation committee, you just keep going and identify all the things and prioritize what needs to be done. And then separately, we'll work on the fundraising and see how much do we think we can raise. And that's when we hired a consultant called Walsh & Associates. They're out of Naperville, but they do work all over the country. They were recommended by the synod, and we used them to do the congregational interviews and help us with that feasibility study. And we did that in November and December, and we interviewed approximately 30 to 35 people and couples, so probably more than 35 people, but at least 35 separate probably giving units, you could call it, to survey and get a sense of how much would people be willing to assist in a capital campaign, because we didn't want to really go forward if the appetite was very low. But based on that survey, which I think everyone's had a chance to see, the feasibility study, there was definitely a willingness to tackle some of these projects and see how much we could raise. So we did that work, and there was very positive response from that. And so we've further engaged, the council's further engaged Walsh & Associates, and we voted on that a month or so ago to fund the additional capital work for the capital campaign. All right, next one, John. I think Ron had some inspiration from the bishop over the last couple days for their synodical meeting, and I can't really elaborate more. Chip was there, but I think the thing here is that if we limit ourselves too much and think that we just can't do it, we'll never do it. So we're going to have to take some risk here with respect to thinking how much could we really do, and then once we see, based on the capital campaign, then we can figure out what we can do. But we know there's an appetite there, and so, risk and imagination are inseparable from vitality. Nothing will happen if we don't do something. And so I applaud the council and the leadership for keeping this and moving it forward so we can see how far can we get.
Thank you, Chuck. Could we go ahead to the next few? Keep on going. Keep on going. Okay. But I want to go to John to explain. Okay.
These are the 4 reasons why we're doing this.
That's a good point. Okay. Keep on going again. You have to go to the next slide. Keep on going. There you go. Because what the council had really talked about in getting the input from everyone was that we needed a safe environment in the church. Like the outside stairs aren't really that safe. Going down in the basement, we can't get there. We know about the accident that happened recently. And so that was important. We want the church to be really inviting to the community and to the neighbors and to ourselves. And so that was one of the things that the Renovation Committee talked about. And accessibility. Part of the church is not accessible to a lot of people, cannot go downstairs. So that we had to address. And how do we get, when you have a funeral, how do you get caskets in and that? It's really a difficult issue coming up the stairs and that. So that was something they took into effect. And of course, the bottom line, of course, is always cost effective. How can we do the most we can do with the money that we're going to gather from everyone? And so I think now would be a good time probably for John just to explain what the Renovation Committee, who was on it, people who are here you could introduce and talk about that process. And then we'll go in to a sample or you take a look at the concept drawings that we have, which are unbelievably exciting when you see them. They're just phenomenal what John's committee did and what the architect did.
Thanks, Chip, and thanks everyone for joining us. First, I'd like to introduce our committee, Keely Witzel, Amy Wilson, Ingrid Durham, Marty Jensen, and Chuck, who's with us. Our interviews, Chip joined for quite a few of those, and Ron joined those also. I think Chuck ran through the background and what the committee did. So yeah, one of our main challenges was going through all the different ideas and trying to prioritize. But then, as you looked at these projects, many of them were interrelated with other things. So as you did one thing, you had to do something else, and then, one more thing beyond that. So it's quite a challenge to put that together. But one of the things we wanted to do was draw on the inspiration and the experience from the architect. So the committee only brought it so far, and then we went through a process of selecting architects, and we ended up selecting 7 who all had interviews with us on site here. And through those interviews, one of the things we were able to do when we made our final selection, which was Archon Architects out of Lombard, we were able to capture a lot of different ideas from a lot of different architects and incorporate those ideas into the plan. So it was a good experience hearing the different themes that the architects had and some of the other recommendations that I believe we'll be incorporating. So one of the main priorities was around the entryways. And as you know, we currently have our primary entrance off of Valette, but we also have a secondary entrance in the back and then along the side of the church. This is the Valette entrance, we believe, is an area that we need to improve for the welcoming and also just for the overall, vision and excitement of the church, and to really bring it up to a more visually appealing building. So one of the things we've done with the other thing, we're going to make a secondary rear entrance. So
one thing I would like first to explain. One thing I'd like to explain is if you take a look at what they call it is, it's smaller, obviously, but there's a new perimeter roof parapet, as you can see. Can you see the top on the left picture of what the front looks like with you see all the concrete? Well, now instead they're going to cover that over, and that's going to be going all around the church, which will really make it look good. And it's smaller, it's eye-catching. But then we also, the concept of gable entrances came into effect. And there you see what the front entrance would look like, smaller. Yes? So are you saying the top 2 pictures are current? Yes, they are. And the bottom one is a potential front that we would like. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. She wanted to know if the top 2 pictures were presently as the church is, and the answer is yes. Okay. What do those words say? Epiphany Lutheran Church, and then with the symbol. There's a word for evangelical, sure. Oh, okay. Okay.
go ahead. Yes, let's go through the slides, and we'll address any questions on the current slide. But until we get through them all, if there's another question, because more than likely it's covered on a subsequent slide. Again, yes. We just need a new circuit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, okay. All right.
Let me talk for a minute then while that's going. I think just so you know what everybody was looking at, and I'll talk ahead of what you're going to be seeing. What they were dealing with was the entrance, obviously the front, to make it more appealing. But then the reason, and I'll go into that, you can't have a ramp. The ramp would go all the way to Hillside Avenue by code. And you can't put a ramp in, it's because of where the sidewalk is all the way, and you have to have so many inches down for so many feet and all of that kind of thing. So that it makes it an impossibility. But then, when this comes up, we deal with the back. How are we going to make this a handicap entrance or church? And let me tell you, the design they came up with is just going to blow everybody away. It's putting a new south entrance into where the chapel is. The chapel will be replaced, but it will be not replaced, it's going to change its function there. That would be an entrance into the church, would open up that whole area as a gathering area. And you're going to have a gable entrance, but the key thing is, and you have to get it approved by the city, of course, is to have a second cut into the parking lot so that it becomes a U-drive. So you could drop people off. It'll be a covered entryway on that side for rain, for bad weather, that kind of a thing. And so they would come in on the far south, then make a U-turn, and then go right back out, and it will increase parking back in there. Sure, you're not going to be able to park 50 cars. That we know we'll never be able to do. But that gives us our handicap entrance. It brings in for funerals, for weddings, and as you come in, okay, we're almost there. Yeah, it's still not there yet. So, okay, why don't we, well, that's it on the front. Let's go to the second slide.
I want to say a couple more things about. So one of the architect's themes was open and inviting, and he tended to build with a lot of open windows along the entryways to bring the inside out, was how he described it. And maybe there's not a ton of traffic on Velette, but still, I think this new design does that. And basically what that does is help draw people in. If they see activity as they drive by, and it looks like a thriving community, thriving church, that makes people interested. As Chip explained some of the things, and we'll look at a little later also, we didn't think we needed as wide of an entry, and by doing that, you open up the windows and you hit both objectives. And that's less maintenance, as Marty points out. This is the current view of the rear of the church, as we all know. You could see in the bottom left, the concrete roof beams are still visible like they are on the other side. On the top two pictures, the beams have been cut off, but it's still not an appealing look whatsoever. So we came up with some renderings of a new rear entrance, and we'll look at the aerial plot plan in an upcoming slide. But what you'll see here, as Chip mentioned, you could see the parking lot. Now it is become a two-way with the entry to the right. You circle around counterclockwise, and then you drive out on the other side. This puts you closer to the south, well, not the south, the entry that you see on the left side, but it also provides a secondary main entry that you see on the right side. both with gabled roofs. And you can see an example on the bottom left of a previous installation, something that look a little bit more like that. So very appealing. You have the parapet wall that blends in with the new church roof, and then you've also put a brick veneer on the face, and that also blends in with the existing brick. So it all is very functional and accommodates a wheelchair entry that goes into an area in the building that's more accessible once you're inside also. And then it's also much more appealing. One of the things with the architects looking at are permeable pavers. So we're also looking, one of the architects was very focused on environmental and green construction. So we're also hitting that aspect in the parking lot for water management. There you can see the aerial view, and by making this a two-way traffic, you're doing a couple things. One is just improving the flow. Anybody who uses the rear entry will know that it gets pretty congested back there, and it's difficult to negotiate right now. It also adds about 10 parking spots. Unfortunately, based on our plot plan, we'd like to have 30 more spots, but that's really not a reality at this time. But it makes what we have much more usable, and it expands it also.
Question on the back. If you're going to add that many spaces, and that's going to be wheelchair entrance, my assumption would be there's going to be more spaces in the back also for handicap there.
Yes, and right now, I think there's only 3 or 4 shown, but again, this is conceptual. We'll, based on the needs of the church and the feedback, we'll accommodate that. So yeah, there'll be more handicap accessible, but on the flip side, we don't want to eliminate the use, by making too many. Certainly, I think we'll still support this entry being for the elderly and those of lower mobility, whether they're handicapped or not. Anyone who's able to and can park elsewhere, we still want to give the preferential use to those people. No, there's still an entry for the ACC, the one on the left, right there. So you're actually seeing the 2 entryways. In the upper right-hand corner, on the left side, is the ACC entry. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's correct. And then on the lower right, you're actually seeing the entry that's more tucked inside the circle of the turnaround. Yeah, the question was, is there a place for the dumpster and trash access? Yeah, that'll, over to the lower right-hand side, I believe. I'm not sure we have that exactly.
That's where it's going to go. Because I talked to the architect about it. It basically goes on Ron's side. That's basically kind of where it's going to go. Right.
My assumption is the driveway, that's Ron's driveway that goes through, that's not.
No.
That's going to be a walkway.
No, that's a walkway.
Oh, that's going to be a walkway.
No, well, no, that is in this view, that's his driveway extended. One of the things we considered our prior committees or generations considered was extending that through. And I think I'm not sure if we were to do that, if we could do that from the city would allow that, an entry right there.
Okay, there's going to be elevation changes, you said, and there's going to have to be some kind of a step up.
All right, we have two drawings here that show the overall plans for the first floor and second, but then we'll walk through each of the individual phases. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on these first two, and the second and third phase aren't shown on this slide, but they're shown on the others. But you could basically the first floor here and the basement there. Again, not all of them are all the other classrooms have activity in them also, but they show you that we're touching just about most all the areas of the church. So this is a pretty comprehensive renovation. There are areas where there's minor upgrades of just aesthetics, but there's other areas certainly that some major changes have occurred. So, the question was, what happens to the chapel? In this current rendering, we will not have the chapel.
I can talk to that. Okay, the stained glass windows are a concern in how we're going to reuse them. And the architect said he has to figure that out. The chapel will be eliminated. The chapel right now really hasn't been used as a chapel, it's a meeting room. And so as you can see here, with the chapel gone, as you go, you can see right straight ahead the two entrances that open up the church, the two entrances. As you go right inside the new south entrance, you go to the left. Do you see where Pastor Anna's office is? That's going to be a greeting where that can be used as the main.
Use a pointer.
Use a pointer? Oh, you can use that?
Red button.
Oh. How about that? Okay, right here, so when people come in that way, or people come in here, they know where the church entrance is. I'm shaking like that. What is that a lot? Jeez. My wife asked me about that. Sometimes when you're writing, I hope not. But that's where we are right now. And that is, basically it could be where the secretary goes, or what I call secretary, administrative assistant. But that would be now when people come in the main entrance, they know where the office is. They don't know where it is right now. And, but now you're dealing with the chapel in a meeting room. What would happen was, as you can see right there, on that area, we're going to move the ACC down a little bit. And then we make a new council room, new meeting room to replace what was in the chapel, and it'll be right, whoops, atta boy. Here, you get it back. Point. And then they'll get that area back as a council room, and then the ACC would use the lower portion of it. Why don't you point? Right in there, where the council meets now, and that'll be the ACC area, which we, of course, could still use at night, for meetings. And then the hallway would be done with, you're going to do new flooring on the whole level. That's the one thing that we haven't talked about yet is on the right-hand side, the elevator. The elevator would go right out here. And that will allow us to use Fellowship Hall, which we can't use. So it would go right downstairs now. I believe, point to the stairs. I think the stairs there are probably going to be eliminated. Okay, now then, well, let's go to the next one. I'll let you start.
All right, we'll look at this area in more detail, because this is a key component. This hits multiple facets of what we're looking to do on accessibility. So, as you can see with this new entry, not only for handicap accessibility, but also for funerals. That was also another item that was brought up. It will provide a much better flow into and out of the church. This opens up as a central meeting area, and also this rear will be open and the front will be open, so it's also providing an open, accessible look from front and back. For people flow, this is opened up in the middle with the walls coming out and a coffee bar put in the middle of that. So that will allow people and encourage people to mingle coming in, whether it's from this direction or this direction, because they're both coming through to the same place. So it's enabling people to meet and talk, but also you're still retaining your doors so that you're not necessarily disturbing this area. As much as possible, we've designed for multi-use space, which is basically what the architects recommend. So as you can see, there's a lot of different things that can be done with this area. Question in the back? So the questions were, to just repeat, the discussion was about the entry, essentially covering. Yeah, so with all that, we're trying to accomplish some of the restrictions was cost-based. So one of the things in the front here was to provide the coverage, rain coverage, but we also have restrictions. If we looked at enclosing the outside, but we have restrictions from the city based on our approach distance from the stairs to the street. So we didn't really have much option coming out. So that could be something we could bring up to the architect about the stairs inside, but that would potentially cut into a lot of the space. Yeah, that could be an option here. We could talk to them about extending this, this one further. We'll have to look if we can do that, but. So those are good ideas. Yeah.
Let's go on to the lower level. Well, we'll, a little bit about that.
Yeah.
There's going to be
Yeah.
changes to this. Let's be honest.
Right.
So,
Actually, we're going to start with the first floor plan. The pink shows the phase one, and as we already mentioned, that includes the elevator, the revised entryway and main area, and Chip already talked about the hallways, ceiling and flooring and walls, and then the changes to the ACC. Going down to the next floor, we looked at renovation of Sunday school rooms. The ones that perhaps do get the most activity are the younger grades. So we're looking at an initial renovation of the first three with new sliders, the sliding walls. Then down here would be the new location for the LYO. The current location up in the loft, there's a couple reasons why we need to move it, but the first and foremost is life safety. That only has one means of egress, so by current standards, we probably wouldn't be allowed to use that space. So we want to get away from that, and also we're going to be putting the elevator here and eliminating that downstairs stairwell. So again, that set up this new spot for LYO. That'll give them actually more room and give them their own area away from a lot of what else is going on. Then, along with the elevator, we'd be expanding and renovating the two bathrooms down there. Right here is existing wall for the bathrooms. We'd actually be bringing those out to about here. So those will both grow in size and be renovated. So we'll have full use of the fellowship hall and everything, since the fellowship was recently renovated. We'll have everything down there in a much more appealing state. Did you have anything?
don't we have a slide though? Yeah, right there.
Oh.
This would be the, whoops. Wrong one. Go back to the basement. Yeah. As you can see here, that lower level, there's really a lot of phase 3, because anytime you do construction, you're going to have phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, depending on the funds that you're able to collect. So you can see that you're going to remodel the remaining classrooms in a phase 3 in future. You're going to install central air conditioning in the outside rooms in the west wing. Down there, that's in the blue left, far blue left. And then you're going to remodel in the yellow-green, or the yellow, or gold. Those are the bathrooms down there. Right now, that is not in phase 1 or phase 2. It's basically because of cost. That's a good point, yeah. Pink is 1, blue is 2, and the gold would be phase 3 in their plans. Now, those can be moved around, and it depends as plans keep on going on. But obviously, we cannot be precise while you have 3 phases. We can't be precise about how much money we're going to be able to do. And so on the cost of the projects, remember, we wouldn't start construction until next spring probably, or maybe a little later, because the fundraising is going to be in the fall. So, so now, let's see. We don't know how much we're going to raise, like I just said. We don't know what the exact construction costs are going to be until we put them out for bids. The congregation will have to approve. Oh, the bottom line is, anything you see here will have to be approved or changes to it by the congregation. That's very important. And there will be input along the way. No doubt about that. Have we hit everything? Complete the... Oh, well, there's other phases that we somehow missed. There's like the first floor. We would love here to complete the organ, to install a new sound system, to replace single pane windows, and to waterproof the foundation. That would be in phase 3. Phase 2, we're hoping to renovate the classrooms that we already talked about.
Help me to understand why waterproofing would be in phase 3. That feels like it's a foundational piece to make sure everything else we're doing is not going to be destroyed. So I'm guessing there's a good reason for it. I just don't understand that.
I would certainly guess that we're trying to do... How much leak? Okay, why don't we deal with the waterproofing around the outside now? And it would do. How do we leak? Do we whatever? You want to talk about that issue? You don't? You're going to make me talk about it? It's hit or miss. So I think right now we feel because of the cost of that that's exorbitant. There is a lot to do on the outside. I know I had Permaseal do my house. Okay.
Is this loud enough? Okay. So we already have 7 or 8 sump pumps in the basement, and the issue isn't necessarily the condition of the foundation, but the condition of the electrical system. We don't have backup power, so if there's a power outage in the neighborhood, that's when we have water issues.
So the water issues that we have today aren't because of our foundation.
Correct. Correct. It's not a structural issue, it's an electrical issue. Every drain, every sink, every toilet, every fixture in the building runs into the basement to an ejector pump. There's nothing that runs by gravity out to the street. So if we lose power, the sewers will back up.
So upgrading the electric is in phase 1.
It's not determined yet. It depends on the cost when we get to the amount we raise and when we do it. But the idea is to replace the existing switchboard, upgrade all the circuit breakers, and then add an emergency generator to cover the emergency circuits that need power. This is a very preliminary presentation. It's not a detail, and it all depends on the biggest piece that Chip or John did mention is what's the city going to want. We have to go through a permit process. There has to be a code review, and then they're going to say, the great idea, but you must do this. So we don't know that yet. We haven't met with them.
The basic purpose for today is just to let you know what the renovation committee is hoping to do. And so different phases. I mean, if you end up getting $4 million, it could all be in phase 1, you know. But that certainly isn't likely to happen. But it might. It might. And so we have to plan for the progression of improving the church and making it safe. Yes?
Let's talk about the phase 2 projects
On
on this.
this screen, okay, this is our main floor here. The phase 2 there, I've got to take a look at it. Upper left, it basically is just remodeling. Okay, it's doing the bathrooms right in the center on this main level right there. It's redoing that. If you go up, and it's remodeling and refreshing the other, where the library is and where the children, where the babies are, that area. And then if you go to the right, to the sanctuary, you're going to refinish the floor and the furniture. You're going to upgrade the entrance doors that you see back here. And then you could upgrade the kitchen up here. And then renovate and where the gym is over here. How do you use that yet? But that hasn't been in any specific discussion yet, right now. So that's what's done there. Yes? Oh, I thought, okay. Yes.
Is that the same, not a specific discussion or proposed ideas for phase 3 for the Epiphany Center?
Go, yeah, there's one slide that shows it blue. Yeah, there it says phase 3. That's still under discussion. It is, oh, Pastor Ron. Why don't you come on up if you feel well enough? In fact, you should be leading this. You have all the answers. We're and been involved with it.
I'm not contagious. Can I'll just tell you very quickly, I thought I was having a heart attack this morning, and chest pains and shortness of breath, and Jeff Zietler, who's an emergency room doctor, was here at the first service, and I pulled him in my office, and I said, what do I need to do? And guess what he said? Go to the hospital. So, but everything is okay. I've been at the emergency room at Elmhurst Hospital, so anyway. When I went in, I told them I had to be back by communion, so thank you. Thank you to Greg and Arlene Taylor, who took me over there and held my hand while they told me I wasn't having a heart attack. So anyway, I tell you, it was tough. Although, one last thing, and that is, I have some bad numbers on my blood sugar and my cholesterol, which I knew about earlier in the week. So if any of you see me eating a cheeseburger, well, I've got to tell you, since Kurt Clifford is here, Joe, his brother, had a heart attack 2 weeks ago, and I was just, along with everybody else in Joe's life, wondering why Joe had chest pains on Friday morning and didn't go to the hospital till Saturday morning. So I was thinking about Joe when I was sitting in my office this morning, wondering what the pains were. So anyway, that's enough of that. I think a mistake on these drawings is that the Epiphany Center painting new floors would certainly be phase 1. So, this is all under discussion. This, I hope it's been said many times, this is very preliminary, exactly what things would cost and exactly how much we could do in which phase has everything to do with the cost and everything to do with how much we raise. But I would say, if I had to bet on anything absolutely being in phase 1, it would be that there's new flooring and new paint in the Epiphany Center. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes?
Have we contacted Elmhurst at all? Was there communications?
Well, the architect. I think the question was, have we contacted the city on things yet? The architect is I know they're in touch. I don't know if they had the meeting yet.
They have had the meeting, and they did identify a couple of issues. I hesitate to go into that in too much detail. Again, it's very preliminary. The issues are going to be the, Marty, what do you call the permeable area? Yeah, how much, water management, where that goes. We're going to be really tight on that in terms of their formulas and in terms of trying to increase the parking lot area. So that, we're going to have to play with that, and there's not going to be a lot of extra room there. Let's see, what was the other thing? The actual number of parking spaces. We're going to be really close on that. The architects were a little bit concerned about how far out on the front the overhang can come. That could be an issue, but I don't remember them saying that was a problem after they met with them. But no, we have had a preliminary conversation with them. One thing that could be that a number of us suggested might be an issue is the additional exit or egress right there, right onto Hillside. But I did not hear them say that that was going to be that they anticipated that. So, yeah, so the answer is, the short answer is yes, they have met with the city, but again, very preliminary stuff.
You can see with all of this, it really changes so much of the church and the look and to the community. It's just going to be fantastic. Question?
Relationship, what's the difference between Archon and Walsh and Associates?
Relationship. Walsh is helping us raise the money, and Archon is helping us design the work. This is Archon work, right? Yeah.
Could you talk about that entrance room where you come from both entrances?
Okay.
The center of that room is the staircase,
Correct.
and then where is the coat racks, and how do you see them? There's two entrances to the Epiphany Center. They're both open. There are no doors there, or are there going to be doors at the two entrances? What's that thing in the middle there?
Okay.
That looks like a cage on the side, and just walk around that room.
Okay. Point to the top stairs. No, to the right. Right? No. I'll be doing it here. Right there. There are going to be doors there. Those are the doors that are right there. By the end. There will. Yes. Aren't there?
That's a detail that has not, we've talked about that. We've talked about doors or no doors because of the noise situation. But that's,
Yeah.
the doors are shown there.
Yeah. So they are shown there. Now then, here is the coffee area, where the coat racks are now. That becomes the coffee area outside of Epiphany Center. Then the coats are back in here where the choir is. That's where the coats would be. You can see right through the door there. And that's where that would be. And that's so the H is a coat racks area for the winter in that, right? Did that answer? Good.
And what the architect suggested is that the walls around that stairwell would come down and would put just railing so that it would, be an open area. Would contribute to the openness of that area.
And it would have to be a real safe kind of, so nobody could fall. So that's up to them. Yes. Well, I'm sure that's all in the plans if it's going to be put there. They definitely would have to in an area where we do that. Any other questions? Pastor Schrader's gone through a few building programs in his life, I'll tell you. Anything else you want to say, John? Anything else? Ron? Any specific thing that you don't know quite what we missed or messed up from your notes?
Just one thing about my reaction when I saw this is, wow. I'm particularly excited about the south side. I have always thought the south side is probably our least hospitable looking part, and I would have never thought of putting that entrance there, but it made incredible sense, good sense, and when I look at that, I just think that it will do incredible things for the the welcoming aspect, and, you know, I think of all the people that come here during the week, and the scouts and the Spirito and all that, and how much better and how much functional that'll be. So that shot in the upper right-hand corner or the upper left-hand corner, those are the things that make me want to give generously to this project. That's all I got to say.
Well, any questions, any thoughts more, and then...
So from a process standpoint, the architect's doing conceptual work now. I realize that detail's not, you don't want to be talking about too much of that yet. From a cost perspective, is the architect being compensated or have the responsibility to do the conceptual cost estimating, or is there a contractor or construction manager thought about being engaged to do that as the design matures or the options are considered?
So the question was, who is doing and how are we handling the conceptual cost estimating, and the architect is handling that for us. So with this layout, there's also a conceptual level estimate put together, broken down by these phases. So as we're looking at priorities, we're looking both on the one side, there's multiple components that go into it. You know, one is, I think some of the life safety is high up on the list, but there's also, we need to cover any of the things, you know, if really the power is at the stage of having to do it now, we'll certainly move that up. If it's we need to do it at some point, then we can, you know, evaluate where it lands. But as you can imagine, some of those type items don't help build energy around a campaign. And you want to, you know, through the two main entries and the new section in the middle, you know, that being in the first phase, I think does the most for building the momentum around this project. So certainly we're trying to do that also, because, you know, this is linked with the capital campaign, and we need to be strategic in how we phase it to assist with and promote the giving.
It's interesting that the renovation committee selected Archon, who was basically noted for life safety work in schools. They do churches. They did Elmhurst, Yorkfield Presbyterian. They've done work there, and other churches as well. But I think they were specifically picked because of their relationship to construction companies, because they deal so much with life safety in schools and that. And it's also very important for us we want to really improve the kindergarten area. Not the kindergarten area, the Sunday schools downstairs, and really make them exciting and enticing for kids to come. And we can increase that Sunday school area, and that's going to be important. And they're good at that. That's what they do. That's what Archon does. That it? Everybody? Well, I would like to thank you for coming. We're going to end with the Lord's Prayer, but I would like to thank you for coming, and go ahead. And it's going to be an exciting time. It really is. So let's end with the Lord's Prayer.